What if everything you've built could crumble in a matter of weeks because of injuries you never saw coming? That's the question haunting Montreal right now, and it's far more complicated than it sounds. The air around the Bell Center feels suffocating, thick with anticipation, frustration, and that gnawing sense that time is slipping away faster than a breakaway down the wing. The Canadiens aren't just dealing with ordinary roster challenges. They're caught in a perfect storm where injuries have forced their hand, the trade market is bleeding them dry with astronomical prices, and every decision Kent Hughes makes could either accelerate the rebuild or set it back years. This is the moment where competence is tested, where patience collides with urgency, where a general manager has to decide, do we swing for the fences or do we trust the process? Let's be brutally honest here. When Darren Dreger, one of the most respected insiders in hockey, starts painting a picture of your team scouring the league for help, that's not casual window shopping. That's desperation dressed up in professional language, and every Habs fan can feel it. The Canadiens are one of those teams that are scouring the league, Dreger revealed on TSN Insider Trading, his words carrying the weight of someone who knows exactly what's happening behind closed doors. They're looking for the right fit up front. It doesn't necessarily have to be a center. We know Kent Hughes covets a number one center, but he's just looking for help up front. The problem is there are so few sellers and the prices are high. Think about that for a moment. Hughes, the architect of Montreal's rebuild, a man who's been methodical, patient, and strategic in every move, is now actively hunting for solutions. This isn't a GM casually exploring options on a quiet Tuesday. This is calculated urgency. This is a team realizing that the injury situation has accelerated a timeline that was supposed to be measured and deliberate. The forward group is decimated. Every game becomes a test of depth, resilience, and creative lineup management. But there's only so much shuffling you can do before the music stops, and you realize you're one chair short of having a functional roster. Enter Philip Tomasino. The Pittsburgh Penguins placed the young forward on waivers, making him available to any team willing to claim him for nothing more than his existing contract. Here's a player selected 24th overall in 2019, first-round pedigree, legitimate NHL talent, suddenly available through a mechanism that doesn't require surrendering precious draft picks or prospects. In a market where prices are inflated and sellers are scarce, the waiver wire becomes an oasis in the desert. Tomasino represents exactly the kind of calculated risk that could pay dividends. He's young enough to fit the rebuild timeline, talented enough to contribute immediately, and available without the astronomical cost that comes with traditional trades. But here's where the story gets interesting and, frankly, frustrating for Habs fans. John Beecher, a left-handed center who also hit waivers, was claimed by the Calgary Flames on Tuesday afternoon. The Flames, sitting at the front of the waiver priority list, had first dibs. Even if the Canadiens were salivating over Beecher's potential fit, they were powerless to act. The waiver priority system, determined by standings, meant Montreal was stuck watching another team grab a player who could have helped solve their center depth issues. This is the reality of being a team in transition. You don't always get first choice. You don't always have the luxury of selecting from the full menu of available options. Sometimes you're relegated to hoping the teams ahead of you pass on players you desperately need. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the future Hall of Famer in the rumor mill. Steven Stamkos, the legendary sniper who's terrorized goaltenders for over a decade, has been linked to the Canadiens in recent trade speculation. The Nashville Predators forward is apparently in the conversation when it comes to potential Montreal targets. Imagine that for a second. Stamkos in a Canadiens jersey. The same Stamkos who's scored over 500 career goals, who's won 2 Stanley Cups, who represents everything a contending team wants in a veteran presence. It would be the kind of blockbuster move that sends shockwaves through the entire league and has fans lining up around the block for tickets. But here's where smart management separates itself from emotional decision-making. While Stamkos would undoubtedly be electrifying to watch in Montreal, there's a better target wearing the same Nashville jersey, Ryan O'Reilly. O'Reilly represents a more logical fit for what the Canadiens actually need. He's a legitimate number one center, exactly what Hughes covets. He's a two-way force who can dominate faceoffs, kill penalties, and provide the kind of veteran leadership that young teams desperately need. He's won a Stanley Cup as a playoff MVP. He's the type of player who makes everyone around him better, who elevates line mates through his work ethic and hockey IQ. More importantly, O'Reilly fits the timeline better. While Stamkos is still productive, O'Reilly's game is built on elements that age more gracefully. His defensive responsibility, his face-off prowess, his ability to play in all situations. These are skills that don't decline as rapidly as pure goal-scoring ability. But here's the million-dollar question. Does Nashville want to move either player? And more critically, what would the asking price be? If the Predators are willing to deal, they're going to extract maximum value. That could mean parting with assets that Hughes has carefully accumulated during the rebuild, prospects, draft picks, young players with untapped potential. Amidst all the trade talk and injury concerns, there's been a beacon of hope skating on the Canadiens' blue line. Lane Hutson, the rookie defenseman who's been turning heads all season, delivered what might have been his best statistical performance of the year against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that's saying something because Hutson has had plenty of decent games this season. But this performance transcended decent. This was a showcase of everything that makes Hutson special: his skating, his vision, his ability to create offense from the back end. For a team desperately searching for bright spots, Hutson's continued development represents exactly the kind of positive trajectory that makes rebuilds worthwhile. The beauty of Hutson's emergence is that it's happening organically without the pressure of unrealistic expectations. He's a young player figuring out the NHL game, making mistakes, learning from them, and steadily improving. In a season where so much feels uncertain, Hutson's growth provides a foundation of optimism that can't be manufactured through trades or free agency signings. In a move that speaks to thoughtful roster management and asset development, the Canadiens returned defenseman Mark Delgazzo to the Laval Rocket. The timing makes perfect sense from a playing time perspective. Montreal doesn't play until Thursday, while Laval faces Syracuse on Wednesday night at Place Bell. This is the kind of organizational depth management that doesn't make headlines, but matters enormously for player development. Delgazzo needs ice time. He needs to continue developing his game in situations where he can play meaningful minutes. Sitting in an NHL press box doesn't serve that purpose. Getting regular shifts in the AHL does. It's these small decisions, these calculated moves that prioritize long-term development over short-term roster convenience, that separate well-run organizations from those that perpetually struggle. Hughes and his management team understand that building a sustainable winner requires patience and strategic thinking at every level of the organization. So, where does this leave the Montreal Canadiens as we approach the midpoint of November? They're a team at a crossroads, facing decisions that will shape not just this season, but potentially the next several years of the franchise. The injury situation has accelerated the timeline for potential moves. What might have been a patient, methodical search for the right addition has become more urgent. The trade market conditions, few sellers, high prices, complicate matters significantly. Hughes can't simply snap his fingers and acquire the help his team needs. He has to navigate a complex landscape where every decision carries significant consequences. The waiver wire offers occasional opportunities, but those come with their own limitations and uncertainties. The big-name trade targets like Stamkos and O'Reilly are intriguing, but acquiring them would require surrendering assets that Hughes has carefully accumulated. Meanwhile, the development of players like Hutson continues to provide hope and validation for the rebuild process. These young players represent the foundation of something potentially special, but they need support. They need complementary pieces. They need the right environment to maximize their potential. The next few weeks will be absolutely fascinating to watch. Will Hughes pull the trigger on a significant trade? Or will he continue his patient approach, trusting that the current roster can weather the injury storm? Will another useful player hit waivers? giving Montreal a chance to add depth without sacrificing assets? Will the trade market conditions shift as more teams fall out of playoff contention and become sellers? These are the questions that will define Montreal's season. These are the decisions that will determine whether this year becomes a step forward in the rebuild or a frustrating reminder that patience and timing are everything in professional sports. One thing is certain, Kent Hughes isn't sitting idle. He's working the phones, exploring options, performing due diligence. He's doing exactly what a competent general manager should do when faced with adversity. The question isn't whether he's trying to improve the team. The question is whether the right opportunity will present itself at a price that makes sense for Montreal's long-term vision. This is the reality of being a Canadiens fan right now. It's exciting. It's frustrating. It's filled with possibility and uncertainty in equal measure. The rebuild is real. The progress is real. But so is the pressure, and the next few weeks could define everything. Here's what I want to know. What move would you make if you were in Kent Hughes' shoes? Would you go all in on a player like O'Reilly and mortgage some of the future? Or would you stay patient and trust that the rebuild process will deliver results without desperate moves? Would you roll the dice on the waiver wire, or would you stand firm and let the current roster prove itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear what you think the Habs should do. And if this breakdown gave you some insight into what's really happening in Montreal, smash that like button and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of everything happening with the Habs. We're just getting started with this season, and trust me, there's plenty more drama to come.